100,000 immigrants. Yeah, over 100,000 immigrants are leaving Canada every year. And yet, it might not be the right decision for you. Let me explain. See, we've all come to this country to find a better life, be it better education, better healthcare, better career, freedom, whatever that might be. And we all know that things have kind of gotten over the past few years. So the natural question comes back in every immigrant's mind. Is it time to leave Canada, or should I leave Canada? Well, if that's what you're confused about, this video is for you. See, by the end of this video, my aim is to kind of give you a real sense of numbers on how many people are actually leaving Canada, some of the reasons they might be leaving, and a framework or an exercise that will kind of help you decide whether leaving is the right decision for you or not, depending on your unique situation. Hi, I'm Umpreet. I've been in Canada for the past 5 to 6 years, came here as an international student, got my work permit, got my job, grew my career from the ground up, got my PR, and I've kind of seen many things change over the past few years. And these are my 2 cents. But let's first talk about what do the numbers say. Is reverse immigration even real? Well, it's definitely real on social media. The number of influencers that have been posting about why they're leaving Canada, why it's not worth to live in Canada anymore, has been increasing by the day. But here are the numbers. So this chart lays out the number of people leaving Canada by the quarter for the last 5 years. One thing that's pretty evident is the numbers have been pretty consistent for the past 5 years. Of course, with the exception of 2020, which makes sense because air travel was almost non-existent during that time. So in a nutshell, on an average, 80,000 to 100,000 immigrants are leaving, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you put things into perspective, the average number of people leaving Canada every year compared to the overall population is only about 0.3%. And if you compare that number for India, for instance, the number of people migrating out of India compared to India's total population, that number is about 0.2%. And one could argue that not everyone in India has the means to go out and migrate out of the country, which is certainly not true for Canada. Well, that's not to say that everything is great in Canada. Housing market is going through a crisis, there's a shortage of homes, there are insane interest rates, and the average price of a home has increased by 35%, even after accounting for the fall that has occurred recently. But again, let's try to put things into perspective. If you compare the average price of a one-bedroom condo in some of the tier 1 cities in India, like Mumbai, Bangalore, or even Gurgaon, you'll probably be spending around 4 to 5 crores. And if you look at the same condo in some of the prime locations in Toronto or Vancouver, you'll probably be spending around $600,000 to $650,000. So again, not that bad when you compare things with India. But what about the money people make? So I compared some of the most common job roles in India and Canada and compared their salaries based on the PPI. For those who don't know, PPI is known as Price Parity Index, and it lets you compare prices of same goods and services in 2 different economies. And it's a very good and effective tool to compare salaries in 2 different countries. For instance, if you're making 16 lakhs per annum in India, PPI will let you compare and calculate the salary you need in Canada to live the same lifestyle that you lived in India on that 16 lakhs per annum in Canada. Okay, back to the results. So for the most part, the salaries in Canada are on par with the salaries in India when we adjust according to the PPI. And in some cases, they also exceed by almost 100%. Like for a senior accountant or a registered nurse, you could make as much as 100% more in Canada, even after factoring in the PPI, which is insane. Though it's important to note that these salaries are averages. And if you made on the higher end for your role in India and you make on the lower end in Canada, you might not be able to beat the PPI. But that's a pretty wild edge case. Well, if the numbers say otherwise, why do we see so much hype on social media and people be really vocal about why they're leaving Canada and why is it not worth it to live here anymore? Well, I think it could be because of the difference in expectation versus reality. You see, without going into too much detail, I feel many immigrants or even international students landed in this country and think their job is done, that everything will just be served to them on a platter, which couldn't be farther from truth. The reality is, like any other place, when you come to Canada, you have to balance a gazillion things, compete with other people for jobs, upgrade your skills, pay your bills, and also deal with some of the harsher weather conditions. And this kind of creates a difference between their expectation and the reality that there is, that kind of creates that dissatisfaction or the hype that we see these days. But that doesn't mean all of the 100,000 people that are leaving are certainly wrong on their perspective. You see, what I mean is you can't arrive to the right decision by basing it on numbers or trends, or certainly not on the hype that there is on social media. Hence, this exercise that we'll use will kind of help you decide whether or not you should leave or stay depending on your unique situation. So let's get into it. Well, the exercise that we'll be using is called Wheel of Life. And it involves basically dissecting your life in areas that kind of bring you joy, satisfaction, or could also be a source of anxiety or stress. Now, the idea is to break down this wheel into three main categories: health, relationship, and work. And then further dividing these into subcategories, as you can see on your screen right now. Now, what you want to do is score yourself or your life on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these categories or subcategories. 1 being highly dissatisfied and 10 being extremely satisfied or fulfilled. Now, once you've scored all of these subcategories, what you'll want to do is just look at 3 subcategories that you've scored the worst in. And it'll be different for everyone out there, because all our lives are different, all our personalities are different, all our circumstances are different. You get the idea. And once you have those 3 subcategories, it brings us to the second part of this exercise, which involves answering some prompts. Now, the first prompt you'll answer is, what's one outcome or result that I can achieve in this area that have kind of helped me be more satisfied with it? Now, the answer to this prompt is going to be outcome and results based, and you'll only want to include just one result that can improve your life or help you feel more satisfied in that area. For instance, if you've scored low in relationships, an answer could be find a romantic partner or whatever your dating intentions are, right? You get the idea. Just one outcome or result. Now, the second prompt you're going to answer is, what can I do in my control while living in Canada to help me move closer to that outcome? Unlike the previous prompt, the answer to this is going to be input based, as in things you can do in your control to move you closer to that outcome. And you'll want to list down as many things as you can think of that will move you closer to your goal. Now, following the previous example, an answer to this prompt could be make a dating app profile, work on your skills, be more stylish, be extroverted, etc. All the things that you can do to help you move closer to that goal. Now, once you've answered that, that brings us to the final and the third prompt, which is, what unfair advantage would I gain if I moved to India to help me move closer to that outcome or result? Now, similar to the previous prompt, you'll want to list down as many unfair advantages as you can think of that will help you move closer to that goal. But do keep in mind, these have to be unfair advantages that won't be possible while living in Canada. Following the example, an acceptable answer to this prompt could be, there's a larger pool of community that you're trying to date in India as compared to Canada, or something along those lines. You get the idea. Now, once you've answered all of these 3 prompts, you'll want to answer them again for the other 2 subcategories that you had left out initially. And now we come to the fun part. If you recall, initially I'd said this exercise will kind of help you decide whether or not leaving or staying is the right decision for you depending on your unique situation. And once you've answered all of these 3 prompts, the answer is kind of right in front of you. See, the point I'm trying to make is, there's no one-size-fits-all approach here. Social media, peer pressure kind of affects the way we look at things while neglecting our situation or how things really make us feel. And this exercise kind of brings out what we really feel, what we're really dissatisfied about, and really brainstorm if those things could really improve if we move or not. You wouldn't need social media, peers, strangers on the internet to kind of advise you whether you should stay or not. You see, as cliched as it sounds, there's no right or wrong answer here. There's just right or wrong depending on your unique situation. And there's no better judge out there who can decide if it's the right decision for you or not other than yourself. And this exercise kind of helps you decide by putting all of the information in place for you to make a decision. This kind of brings us to the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think about this whole leaving or staying situation. Any general anecdotes that you'd like to share, or anything in general that you think might be useful for others, down in the comments below. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.